Hi, I'm Carla, co-owner of On the Bluff Labradors, and this video is going to be about spaying and neutering. So they started mass neutering in this country, dogs, in 1995, and it was basically, they were so overrun with dogs in the shelters, and there were so many dogs that they were looking for a way to stop the production of dogs, and so they began to just automatically neuter, and they particularly in all the shelters, any dog that entered a shelter got neutered. And then it spilled over into the mainstream, and then suddenly all dogs in this country had to be neutered, and that was a responsible thing to do. And it was wreaking havoc with our dogs, and it took a while before anyone understood what was happening. So basically, there was a great study. It was actually a whole bunch of studies that were being done on these early neutered dogs, and this fellow from Rutgers put it together. It's called the long-term health risks and benefits of spaying and neutering in dogs, and definitely the risks way outweigh the benefits when you see the study. So the problem mainly with the spaying and neutering is that they're taking all their hormones away while they're trying to grow, and so their bones don't form properly, and it puts them at risk for bone cancers and blood disorders, and also there's a sex hormone that stops the growth of the dog. They don't have it, so they grow often taller than they're supposed to. Their growth plates don't close, so instead of coming in like this and sealing, they sort of stay like this. And the other thing that was happening was that they were blowing their crucial ligaments, which I never even made that connection between the neutering, because I didn't even know what an ACL was. So in sometime 2002, 2003, a woman called and asked if we had ACL problems in our line, and I said, "What's an ACL?" So she said, "Obviously you don't, I don't watch football." But it turns out that was a problem too, because of the growth plates, and so it was stretching out the crucial ligaments. And so suddenly we saw a massive amount of that, and I can't tell you how many people come here to pick up a puppy and tell me some past dog that they had ACL problems, if not one or two. I mean, the good news about that is that it's not life-threatening, and often if you rest your dog, you can, you can heal it, or you can do an operation as well. But the other things, like the blood sarcomas and the cancers, that is life-threatening, and that's just not going to heal. And so a way to avoid this is to A, not neuter at all, and that's a possibility, or B, wait till they're grown. So there was another study done with golden retrievers. Golden retrievers get a lot of cancer, and they were trying to see what the relationship was of the neutering to the cancer, of which there was a lot. But what was great about this study is they neutered half before they were grown and half after they were grown, and definitely the ones that were neutered after they're grown did much, much better. So our recommendation is, if you feel like you have to neuter, please wait until they are grown. And with a Labrador Retriever, that would be anywhere after 2.5, 3 years old. I would say with a male, you never really have to neuter them, because you're not going to have to go through heats. With a female, what I would suggest is that you go through 2 heats if possible. You can go on Amazon now and you can get these little heating pads will stop it so that the blood doesn't go in the house. For the most part, it's very little blood. Often that you won't even know that she's in heat, the female's in heat, because she's cleaning herself. So and I'd say the way you would know that she changes a little bit, she might be a little more protective of you, because she's getting ready to have puppies, or she also might be a little more affectionate, if that's possible for a lab. So those are ways that indication. And also, if you look at her when her back is to you and she's running away and the tail is up, you'll see that she's swollen. So you can basically get these little kerchiefs so she doesn't get blood in the house. The blood only lasts about 7 days or so, and then it'll go clear, and that's usually when she is actually fertile. For the most part, because of this, we have what we're doing in this country, and we're neutering all the dogs, you most likely will not run into a non-neutered male. So that's not the risk anymore. There really is no risk, except that she will smell different, and I would recommend, if you take your dog to a park, not to take her to the park at that time. If you have a backyard, just walk her in the backyard, or just walk her on the street. So I can't tell you when she's going to go into heat exactly. That is really an unknown, and they don't always follow their mothers. But I would say the average is about a year. Could be 2 years. That would be in your interest. But let's say she goes into heat in a year, and then you wait. The least amount of time will be the second time she goes into heat is 6 months. Often they don't go again until 8 months or 10 months, but let's just say 6 months. That puts her at 18 months, and then at that point you let her go through a second heat, and then keep track so you know how long it was. If it was 6 months or 7 months, so let's say it was 6 months, then wait about 5 months, then she will be almost fully grown, and at that point you can spay her at that point. And if you can possibly do it laparoscopically, it is certainly the best way to do it. There's almost no scar whatsoever, and they also just recover very, very quickly. It is expensive, and it's a little hard to find vets who are doing it because the machinery itself is expensive for them to get, and a lot of them don't have the machine. But if you can do it, it would be great. But that will at least put her past the risk of all the things that happen when you take their hormones away from them. And with the male, I just see absolutely no need for it. And the only problem you're going to run to is really a political one, because they'll see that your male has testicles. So I always say, you can say to, if you go to a park and a fight ensues, and probably if you have one of our labs, it's not going to be his problem, it's going to be who had the dog he just met. But you'll get into trouble, because when dogs fight, people fight, and then they'll start screaming at you because they'll see his testicles, and they'll assume that's the problem because it's a complete propaganda thing that was put out there that, the testicles, it's testosterone that causes fighting. Believe me, it does not. Our males, we have a whole bunch of unneutered males here, and they have even females in heat in front of them, and they do not fight. It's the females actually that fight more than the males do, which is more territorial. But at any rate, so if that ensues at that point, what I highly recommend is you just simply say you're thinking of showing. You can't neuter a show dog, end of conversation. Don't get into the political argument, because you're sort of telling people that they just put their dog at risk for a lot of stuff for them neutering. And you can also do that with your veg. You can just say you're thinking of showing. That's the end of the conversation. You don't have to get into the whole politics of it, or your opinion that it's not so good for them, and then get into a fight like that. So that's my suggestion that you can do with males, and I really think that if you can avoid it, you don't really ever have to neuter a male. And the females, I would just say, take them through 2.5 heats, as I like to call it, 2 heats, and then halfway to a third, and that will put them fully grown. And at that point, they have a much better chance of not getting all of these things that can be side effects of early neutering.